For the purpose of this session, we'll be using a reproduction of the Sower by Van Gogh. I have found in the course of my years of teaching that it's really useful to, from time to time, copy and study closely the work of other artists, which is why I chose this particular drawing for the first session. It's full of movement and energy and extraordinary expressive mark making, which was so characteristic of the drawings by Van Gogh at this period of time, which is approximately 1870, in that kind of period. So it's quite some time ago. Anyway, to start off with, I'd like us to take a piece of tracing paper and simply fix it with masking tape to the reproduction that you have in front of you, so that the tracing paper doesn't move about as you're tracing. So we just need to fix it with a couple of pieces of tape to the board. And then I would like you to just proceed with doing a simple outline drawing of this figure of the Sower. Now, I have already pre-done this, so I'm going to jump ahead and just show you. I've just done this simple outline tracing of the figure, and it will be useful in the course of the session, which I will explain as we go along, as using for reference, not for tracing down onto another piece of paper, just for reference for the proportion and position of the figure. And it's certainly worth noting that because the back is bent over, there is a certain degree of foreshortening across the shoulders. So the shoulders appear quite wide, and then it narrows into, without you actually realizing it, narrows into its waist. The other thing to look for is the position of the head in relationship to the back of this far shoulder. If you hold your pencil horizontally, it lines up with the top of his ear, and that's really worth remembering when you start off with the drawing of the upper part of the torso. The equipment you're going to need is a small piece of sharp rubber, and what I tend to do is I tend to take a larger piece of, a larger eraser, and I get a knife and I cut off a corner. And that way I end up with something that's got a sharp, clean edge. And this is very useful when you're using charcoal. I know traditionally people use putty rubbers, but I haven't found it particularly successful over the last few years. So I've reverted back to a hard, ordinary, good quality rubber. And then finally, the other equipment you're going to need, apart from you saw me pick up a pencil, useful to have a pencil for evaluating the size of things. So for instance, the size of his foot, the width of the foot from the toe to the back of the trousers is amazingly wide, and you need to compare it perhaps with the other foot when you're drawing and note that they are similar size. Maybe compare it with the size of the head in this position. It looks to me as though the size of the head from that point to the front is about half the width of this piece of my pencil. So, you know, you can compare things across the figure, and that's why it's useful to have a pencil. In terms of the drawing, I used a piece of charcoal like that, a standard medium piece of charcoal. If you have very thin charcoal, that's also fine. And I also have some chunky charcoal, which I might use as well.